We describe and illustrate the absolute value of a number on the number line as the distance of a number from 0. We focus today in the absolute value. What is opposite? 3, it is negative 3. Negative 4, it is 4. Negative 10, it is 10. 8, it is negative 8. Negative 12, it is 12. 100, it is negative 100. If you see opposite, it's an additive inverse. If the teacher asks you what is the opposite of 3, it is a negative 3. And if the teacher asks you what is the opposite of negative 12, it's a positive 12. So we have a number line. So the number line consists of positive integers, negative integers, and 0. So negative 1 is the opposite of 1 or vice versa. Positive 4 is the opposite of negative 4. Negative 7 is the opposite of 7. Or we can use also positive 7 is the opposite of negative 7. Remember, the opposite is negative to positive or positive to negative. So our next topic is absolute value. So the absolute value of a number is the distance between the number and the 0. So if you say absolute value, it's about distance between, or number of units between the integers. So that's called the absolute value. So absolute value, it is denoted by this 2 bars. So we are using 2 bars to identify the absolute value. So if you represent the absolute value, so what is the absolute value symbols? So it's at 2 bars. So here are example to how to represent absolute value and how we read the absolute value. So here we have a absolute value here symbols. So how would we read this? So 2, the absolute value of 2 is 2. This is an absolute value of negative 2. So how we read this? 2, the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. So negative absolute value 2, and how did read this? The negative absolute value of 2 is negative 2. So we have a negative sign on the outside of the absolute value. So how we read this? So negative 2. So the negative absolute value of 2 is negative 2. So this is the reason why we negative sign and the final answer. So this sign. So now we have an absolute value here, that positive integers, negative integers, and 0. So we have a question here. What is the distance of 4 from 0? So how did you get the distance? So we count from 0 to positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the distance from 4 from 0 is 4. So what is the distance of negative 4 from 0? So count, start from 0 to negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4. So how will it write into symbols? So absolute value of 4 is equals to 4, or absolute value of 4 is equal to 4. So we are also using 2 bars. So have you noticed that inside the absolute value of 4, negative 4 rather, is equal to 4. So why it is a positive 4? So if we get the absolute value, so always a positive equals to positive. If the absolute value of negative 4 is equal to 4. So the absolute value of negative 4 is positive 4. It always be a positive. So always remember, the absolute value of a number is the distance between the number and the 0. It is never negative. We only finding the distance, so it will never be a negative. So here is example. So absolute value of 4 is equal to 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So why it is negative 4? So inside the 4 is also a negative. So we add a negative here in the outside. So the value of the so here, why is it negative 4? So inside the absolute value is negative 4. So if negative, we have also a negative outside on the absolute value. So that is why the answer is negative 4. I know some of you are confused that we said before that always never be a negative. So listen. So inside the absolute value, negative 4 is equal to 4. So the negative outside the absolute value, this is the reason why the answer is negative 4. Here also, so the negative is in the outside of absolute value. So the final answer here is negative 4. So here is the absolute value of x is equals to 2. So the x is equals to 2 and negative 2. So the absolute value of x is equals to 3. 3 and negative 3. So x is equals to 15. So positive 15 or negative 15. So x is less than or equal to. So it will be the negative 2, negative 1, 0, positive 1, and